heart was split between the two. But based on counsel from a number of trusted advisors, I decided that running for council at that time would not allow me to use my best skills and abilities because the climate wasn't right in our town. I feel 100% different about it today. One big reason is because of the work that the council has recently done to look at your own internal communications and relationships, and in turn how that affects our town and engaging our residents. And so I think my background and where the council is today are meeting eye to eye.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
No.
I just wanted to ask, Ben, do you have a vision of what Atherton might look like 5 or 10 years from now if you are elected appointed on council?
I have a vision about how Atherton will be talked about. I do a lot of work throughout the county in lots of cities and towns and these different agencies and groups of people. And when I first moved to Atherton, and I told people I was a resident of Atherton, I got the evil eye every now and then. And of course, in eliciting why it was that I was getting kind of a negative reaction, the response typically was that Atherton was somewhat internally focused and not necessarily a member of a larger community. And so 5 years from now, I want to hear people say, Atherton is a group of people that are forward-thinking, that embrace diversity, that lead the way. I think that's possible. I don't even have to comment on how I want Atherton to look, because it looks that way to me. It's beautiful, it's serene, it's warm, it's welcoming. And I want everybody else in this county and in this state to know that that is.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Rosie. Okay. So we'll, there are 3 more candidates. We'll pass it down.
All right, Jim.
Yeah.
You get 1 or 2? Well, you can't look at the names and decide which one to name.
I'm trying to separate them.
It's very light print, so I don't think you can read
One of the
the
things to be in a council member is you really need to know how to separate.
Okay. Okay.
Diane Sandu.
Diane is not here, so we'll move on to the next applicant. Mr. Ridley.
My turn.
Oh, it's your turn. You only have 2 in there.
How to separate? Michael.
Michael Stogner.
No, Michael Lempress.
Oh, Michael.
sorry.
Lempress.
That's why we
Oh.
put
So
a
you
last
know
name
who's going to be picked next.
Yeah,
I'll suspense on the next one.
oh, that was.
Michael Lempress. Thank you.
Good to go?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and address you and talk to you about this opportunity. And I'm very impressed that there's 7 applicants. And I think shows, in part, that Atherton really is a special place, and people feel like they can make a difference by sitting on the council, which is certainly why I'm here today. The very easy question about why I want to be up there is because I think the job matters. I think it's important. And I think it's important to give back to your community when you can. It's as simple as that. It's something I think I can do well, and my background prepares me for. Also, not to get corny, but I do have a young daughter, and I do like to look forward. You talk about what's happening in 5 years. I like to hope that in 5 years and in 10 years, she'll have the kind of town here that she deserves, and frankly, I think it's the kind of town we have now. I'd like to make sure that we preserve the characteristics that make it special for her and for the other children as we move forward. In terms of my background, I have spent most of the last, probably far too long, 25 years or longer, doing public policy work. Most of it's been in Washington DC. Some of it's been as a prosecutor here in San Francisco or in Washington DC. And during that time, I've dealt with a lot of the issues the council will deal with, and a lot of the dynamics the council will deal with, and a lot of the both small p and capital P politics that come up in any political setting like that. In addition, in my current job, one of the things I do is serve as I work on corporate governance for my company and attend and work on board meetings with them, where that dynamic is very similar, and I deal with constantly now. One of the differences between being in Washington DC and being here is the ability to leverage yourself and to see real difference in almost real time here, which is a wonderfully rewarding experience and something that rings very true to me and is important. And when I say that, what I mean is I'm serving on the transportation and rail committees. And it's a very different experience from doing that or working in Congress or in the White House in some other setting where you're far removed from what's happening. We talk about an issue. It's an issue that's around the corner that we know about, and we know the people who are affected. And I think it's a fascinating, deeply rewarding thing to do. In terms of issues that I think are important, I'd start from the broad and work down to the narrow if I could. I think that the way I would approach it is I believe very strongly that we should be pursuing policies that are sustainable, and that's fiscally and every other way, but sustainable and transparent. And I think you start there and work down to more narrowly how will that apply, and you look forward over the next five months and over the next period of time. The issues I cite are not terribly different from what others have cited. I think the issue of the parcel tax and how that's going to play out in different ways to structure that are very important. That has effects on public safety and police and what's happening. It also has effects on almost everything else we do. Issue that the civic center, the town center is very important. That needs to get attention, and that will get attention, I'm sure. Just in terms of one thing I want to be sure I stress is that I do believe that Atherton is a very special place. It's a very special time for it too, because I think that there's a huge amount of change happening all around Atherton and within Atherton, and we're not an island. And so as this region develops, it has real consequences on the town. And I think that's accelerating. It's certainly more now than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. In that last minute, I mentioned two things I'd like to say. One, in terms of the town itself and getting people involved, is a fascinating thing to raise, an important thing to raise. I think it's important that people believe their voices are heard. And to that, I think it's important that council members, as I'm sure you do, as I'm sure I would if I were appointed, get out there and be heard, and listen, and actively listen, and let them know that you're paying attention to what they're saying. In terms of council dynamics and what I bring to the council, just stress that one of the things that was drummed into my head when I was in my younger working years was on any issue you debate it vociferously and aggressively, work for a decision, but once the decision is made, you deliver it. And so there's a debate, decide, deliver dynamic that I believe is important, that you stand shoulder to shoulder when a decision is made, and you support it if you can at all possible. I do believe that it's important to develop consensus where you can, but there's times when consensus can't happen, and there's nothing terribly wrong with respectful disagreement, so long as people feel that they're listened to.
Thank you.
My time is up, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any members of the council like to ask questions?
I am going to ask. I'm going to refer to question number 5. Your familiarity and experience with Brown Act.
Yeah. I'd have to be cautious of it. I'll tell you that.
City attorney's right here.
Yeah. So Brown Act. I'm an attorney. I've dealt with sunshine transparency issues for 30 years. Ethics issues in the federal government level. The Brown Act has got some aspects to it that I'm aware of, and I know enough to issue spot, to say, hey, this is there. I absolutely, completely agree with the purpose of it. I think sometimes it doesn't work out in practice necessarily in a way that furthers that purpose, but you've got to be respectful of it and respect that it's in place for a reason. So I absolutely support it. Would comply with it, obviously. And would have to say I'm not an expert in it. You know, can't say I call it out.
None of us are,
I-
but our attorney helps us. I'm going to ask a question that's similar, taking one of the questions that Councilmember Davi raised earlier about running our government like a business. Is that possible, to run our town as if we are operating a private sector business? Can government operations be run in a private sector mentality? With all of your experience, and you have national experience that I think none of us have had, an exposure. So, how do you weigh those against each other?
Well, it might be they're different. I mean, they're different. One of the things about government generally is that you're a monopoly. You're not subject to market forces the way businesses are, and that forces businesses into certain efficiencies and forces businesses to operate in ways that are just much more effective for what they're designed to be. Government service is different. I think that there are a lot of lessons, in effect, a lot of lessons the government can learn from the private sector. I think, candidly, the government should look to the private sector more often. I think there are more lessons that can be learned there in terms of efficiencies. But it's not as easy to say, I've been successful, I've run a company, I know how to do this. There's an old line, I believe it was President Truman said about President Eisenhower, which didn't apply in terms of private sector experience, but his military experience, where he said of President Eisenhower when he was elected president, he said, "Oh, poor Ike, he's going to give an order and wait until he sees what happens." And it's a very different, it's just a very different experience. So I would say they're different. It's too facile to say that you can just transpose one to the other easily. But I think that there's obviously overlap. And I think there's a lot to be learned in both directions, but particularly from the government looking at the private sector.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, now I'm going to let Councilmember Whitmer pick.
She's on there?
At least, sorry. I've got W's on either side of me.
I think,
Mr. Stockton, come to the podium, please.
How'd you know?
This is rigged.
It's like Karnak.
Karnak, you're right.
Thanks, Teresa.
I'm dating myself.
First, if I could. This is
Karnak.
I just wanted to say to Greg that I thought you should appoint Greg before I decided to put my name into the hat, so, because he did finish third in the election. My name is Michael Stogner, and I'm 63 years old. I've known about Atherton since I was 9 years old, when my best friend moved from San Carlos to Valparaiso Road, and I used to have to ride my bicycle down to visit him. And his dad used to own a restaurant called the Villa Dieste in Atherton. And then since then, the last several years, I've been involved with several residents of Atherton. Some of it had to do with the police department, and some of you are aware of some of the work I have done. The reason I'm offering my services to the council is one, I've run for some public offices in San Mateo County recently. I refuse to take any support or endorsements from unions, from any particular organization. And not because I disagree with them, I just wanted the freedom to vote. And in the last election in 2011, the San Mateo County Council, San Mateo County Labor Council misinterpreted my not willing, I actually met with them, but I just told them I wouldn't take an endorsement or I wouldn't take any funds from them. And they translated that into a flyer to all of their members saying community wreckers, union busters, or community wreckers, and they mailed that out to 70,000 voters. So I understand that Atherton has a pretty unique problem in financing, because you have no other way of generating income except for a couple sources. But I would say this, I am not opposed to outsourcing. And as you know, I'm new here, so I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not saying it should be outsourced, your police department, but I'm certainly saying if that's what the majority of residents wanted, I would vote in favor of let's look at it. I also can tell you, coming from San Carlos, I was very much opposed to outsourcing, being in San Carlos, and then when it actually took place, I was very pleased with the outcome of the service level and no complaint. So just a report from that. Also, I will promise you, if you appoint me, I will not run for reelection when this seat is up. And this will just fill Mr. Carlson's spot. And then the residents of Atherton can fill this seat with whoever they decide at an election. I can tell you also, I ran against Jack Hickey in a supervisory race, and after that race, Jack Hickey invited me to run with him for the Sequoia Healthcare District. I ran for the sole purpose of shutting that district down based on a grand jury report. I support grand jury reports. I think that the 19 people that are on them spend a lot of time. I respect them for their time, and I respect their recommendations. So I would be a person in favor of supporting grand juries. I would also support on the idea of parcel tax. I know you have to deal with it. I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but I do think a survey to all your residents would be the appropriate move to at least see what the majority want. And then I will go with whatever the majority of people from Atherton want. So I'm going to say that's my 5-minute speech. If you have any questions for me.
Michael, how long have you been a registered voter in Atherton?
I have been almost 8 days a registered voter in the town of Atherton. And I might be stretching that a day or two.
So one of the reasons of course, I noticed that you have done some posting also on so it appears that you've tried to stay abreast of what's happening, not only here, but in the regional things.
Correct.
What do you think the biggest regional issues that Atherton faces?
Oh, and I did forget to say this, so on the record, I am opposed to high-speed rail, not just coming through Atherton, coming all through San Mateo County. And I've been that way from the get-go, only because I believe all the numbers I'm very sensitive to what I think is fraud, or if somebody's not telling the truth, I'm like a German shepherd or something, I just don't like it. And so, I don't know if that answers your question.
Right, well, no, you're a constant commenter on some of the blogs, so
Right.
obviously you're staying very abreast of things that are going on in many of the towns.
Sure.
What do you think are the most important regional issues that are facing Atherton? So
well-
I realize high-speed rail is one, okay,
Right.
but can you give us another one?
Well, I think the other thing, I like all of our towns to stay themselves. I'm not a big regional fan. I'm not a big Bay Area plan supporter. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. And so I think, because I know several people that live in Atherton, that they just like their privacy, they like their home, and they like where they live, and they're not interested in being some regional development something. So I'm more for the individual property owner, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks.
Okay? Anything else?
Mr. Reese?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, thank you all very much, very impressive. I appreciate everyone's willingness to put yourself out there and talk to us about this. I'm going to bring it back to the council for deliberation and discussion before we take a vote. And if there's any comments you'd like to make at this time?
Are we going to ask the public
Oh, yes.
to ask a question, any of the
Yes.
candidates?
Does any, I said that I was gonna do that, that's not my note. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment, yes, Mr. Massey?
I don't have a question for anybody, but I want to, if I got my arithmetic right. We got one candidate that didn't show, and I want to thank you all for putting in your name. We got two who have no Atherton experience on any committee or any involvement. Two who are one issue or one committee new to the issue. Glad to see you guys keep it up. And two that have involvement experience in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Any comments? Okay, I'll bring it back now to the council. Do you have any deliberation or discussion before we talk about?
I guess I can take a few minutes. This is a tough time for me, and I'm sure with the other council members, we have an incredible group of people. We have 7 people that have stepped up and said they want to come join this council and be part of its leadership in the direction that we're traveling. I'm having some difficulty myself because historically in town, recently, we've had more community involvement. We've made some mistakes, but I think that last year we have shown that the residents of Atherton really, really, really want to be involved. And I do see some incredible applicants that are here today, and I think that myself, that the residents of Atherton deserve to hear what we are hearing, and they frankly deserve to hear more. This just seems to be like a little tickler. This is great, but a lot of the questions that come up from residents, I've done it twice. They want to know things, and they want to ask questions, and they want to get personal and see who you are, where you are, what your point is related to things. Why are you doing it? Why are you crazy enough to do it? And I kind of feel in my way here that they deserve a right to have some input. And I've been pretty consistent on it. And I, in a lot of ways, see people that deserve all of our attention. And frankly, some of you can come up here and be a considerable asset to this council and to this town. And I think that the residents of Atherton, again, kind of deserve a right to hear that too. And they deserve a right to hear your pitch to them and to get to know you better. Mr. Massey made some comments, and thank you, Jim, that there's some experience, but there's some experience in your professional background that could also assist this council and assist this town. So I'm just, you know, I'm a little bit, I'm having some conflict because I do see more than one that I could probably check multiple boxes here. But I also feel, again, that the residents kind of deserve a right to be here too and to hear in on this. And if we as a council can move forward and have an election in November, you know, I'm still pretty, still very supportive of that. So, you know, I don't even want to feel like, in some ways, voting for somebody that like I said, I could vote for, you know, a lot of people. And I wouldn't want to throw a vote in. I don't want anybody that has put an application here to feel as if I vote for you that I didn't like somebody else too, or so on and so forth, and discourage you from your community involvement. You guys have done some incredible community involvement. I wish to see that all those people would continue to do more of it. This is only one position, and there are 7 people. And I've been on the other side and not had the selection, and it can be discouraging. And we need more people like you all that have applied for tomorrow, and not just the application of trying to fill a jury spot, but next year there's an election, there's plenty of committees. I just, you know, wouldn't want to see people be discouraged that we couldn't come up with, you know, a reasonable solution for Jerry. So that's all I have to say.
So I just want to, again, thank everybody. And when council first started talking about what to do, to appoint, to go through the appointment process, or to go straight for the election, I said I would only agree to the appointment process if all 4 of us could unanimously select and agree upon a candidate. You know that, and City Attorney Connor said, you know, you can't make that a requirement because there's a law about majority rules in the democratic process. So someone could be selected on a 3-to-1 vote. Okay. I feel that if it were unanimous, if all 4 of us could choose one candidate, that would send a message to the residents of Atherton, that we were all in agreement and they would get behind that one resident. It's very difficult, I think, to, with this large pool of candidates, to just choose one and not make somebody feel bad. I really I have struggled over the past few weeks about trying to determine what is the best approach for the town of Atherton. What do the residents, will they feel that they have been shut out of the process? I think that by opening it up to the residents to come forward, we didn't shut them out of the process, but I would like to have a unanimous kind of a vote on a candidate. Filling Jerry Carlson's seat is going to be hard. But after reading all of these bios and listening to everyone talk, it's very encouraging. I'm very heartened that so many talented and experienced residents are willing to step up and serve. So it's appointing a replacement at this time to complete our 5-member council is compelling, because I think that would ensure the business, that our town would move forward in a normal business-like manner. So I think that if the council is ready to vote,
Yes.
we'll- yes, I'm ready for you to make a comment. I asked for you to make a
I
comment.
know, but
You didn't want to until
I
I
thought
talked.
everybody was moving along.
Okay.
I have to echo the comments that have been made before. I do think that everybody here who's applied, including the one candidate that didn't come, but I know of her background because she's been on the finance committee with myself as well, as with others. I think everybody here is very, very qualified, and I think that all of you could add tremendous value to the council. And I think when it first came up, my first thought was, well, maybe we should just have it go to the people to vote as well. But I also look forward to a few of the items that are coming up in the next couple months between now and November. And it's possible that, we might need a tiebreaker, hopefully not, because I think that the council has been working quite well together. But you have to face that reality, and I think it would be best, I think that personally, with the quality of the candidates that we've got, I'd prefer that we try and appoint somebody, because I think it makes the best sense for the town tonight. But if for some reason we can't, then I would hope that really all of you would think very hard about continuing your involvement with the city, because I think that you're all very, very qualified, and I think would add tremendous value to the town in any capacity. So thank you for applying.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doughty?
No,
Okay, so if we're ready to vote, the city clerk will pass out the ballots.
Mayor,
Yes.
do you want to mention, discuss possibly deviating from the process that we've used in the past?
So, the process is that the council members are going to mark one mark next to one name only and sign the ballot, and then return to city clerk. Judy will read the votes and the name of the council member who voted. So that will be public. If there are 3 or 4 votes for one applicant, then we have a winner. If not, we will recast our ballots for those applicants who received a vote only. Those who did not receive a vote will not get put into the second round of voting. Okay? If we are unable to come to a majority vote on the second round, we may decide to vote again, but we may just decide to go for the election. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Everybody understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Any members of the public want to say anything, ask anything about that? Yes.
I'm sorry, not about that, but is there a last opportunity for the public to make any more comments before you,
At the end?
before you vote?
Oh, sure, yes, absolutely.
So, Valerie Gardner, I want to thank you, Elizabeth, for trying to achieve consensus on the council. I think that's very important. And I want to thank you, Bill, also for having thought about and concerned about getting the work of the council done. And the thing I want to sort of stress is that Jerry Carlson was elected to do the job, and when he decided to resign, that absence will inhibit the ability of the council to move ahead. And when residents vote for him, they voted for him to do that job. And if we don't have a council member in, I do believe it inhibits your ability to function. So as a responsible council, to appoint somebody for what is less than a year and a half, I think is the responsible thing to do, even though, like myself and many others, we all want to be able to weigh in on our council members. This is just a very short period of time where we need to cover the work of the town before we have a chance to have our normal election. So while I really echo and mirror the need that you feel, Councilmember Weiss, about having people have the ability to weigh in, I do think that what Mr. Widmer has said is very important, because there are important things going on. I also want to reiterate and emphasize that the council has had a lot of work, has done a lot of work this year to build consensus, to build its group, to improve its processes. And I think that the choice of person to fill Jerry Carlson's seat is best done not on the basis of experience or positions on particular matters, but actually on their approach to being a council member, and whether they have the mindset that will allow you to do the work in the way that you have been trying to do, which is to hear what the interests of the community are. So I would really urge you, when you are voting, to not think about personalities and not think about positions that have been expressed, but work style, collaborative style, and ability to hear what other people in the community want, not just to vote on what they want. Because I think that has been a recipe for problems in our town when people have not felt like they have been heard. And that's my point.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other member of the public would like to speak now? If not, we'll close the public comment and we'll receive the ballots.
So we make a check mark.
You can make a check or an X or a circle.
Okay.
Big document.
You also print your initials underneath your signature, so Judy knows who's validated.
Yeah, what, print the initials? Oh, okay,
I know your signatures, she might not.
okay. You have to sign your ballots. Okay, good, thank you.
Vice Mayor Weiss, abstain. Councilmember Dobby, John Ruggiero. Councilmember Widmer, John Ruggiero. Elizabeth Lewis, Rick DeGoya.
So we do not have a majority, and I think that when a council member abstains, he needs to explain why he abstained, but I guess his, your comments previously is why you abstained.
Yes, and I do, and thank you, Valerie, for your additional comments and the other council members, and I think that I feel very strongly that there should be an election, and the amount of phone calls that I've received supporting that, that people couldn't be present today. And, you know, out of respect for all 7 applicants, for me to say that I favored one over another, you are all very good candidates for council. And I know that would have an excellent ability to contribute to this council. And I think that the residents of Atherton, they said they want to be involved. And I just want to be that, my little piece of the tool to keep them involved and keep them engaged and try to learn from some of our lessons. And that is truly the foundation of why I've said, you know, in respect for you applicants, as well as the residents of Atherton.
Okay, so, do we want to do a round 2 with, one of our members abstaining?
Well, you're the boss, you decide.
I want some consensus, it's not, I'm not the
Well, what I'm
boss.
saying is, we can have round 2 as far as I'm concerned, or whatever, you know?
Mhm.
I'm not hung up on either one, but,
Well, is anybody going to change their vote? There's only 2 candidates now. I guess that's the question. Because of
Try another vote.
City attorneys,
It's your call.
will you change your abstention?
You know,
Can he do that legally, if he decides to, change in around, another second round?
Yeah.
I would probably sit here and try to argue with my fellow council members to try to get them to say that we should just bring this out to the people. You know, and I know it's difficult because I have a loaded crowd. You know, it'd be awful easy just to say, hey, you know, it'd be easy just, I mean, everybody's point, you're not here to run an election, at least at this point. But I would urge the other council members just to kind of think about that. I think we can get along and make decisions that can move this town forward for the next few months. And giving every one of the applicants that